no bread. Do you know what she said?
Let them eat cake.
Who took the bomb?
We're getting screwed, man. Every time we turn around, we're getting screwed. Oh, the revolution's going to be through podcasting for sure. That's the only way we talk. It's the little guys that take the brunt of everything. It's got to stop. Peasants, man. We're just peasants. Every one of us. You watch those old movies, you see the peasants in the background with the kings and queens walking around. We're those people. We're those people. Good morning, peasants. Welcome to another episode of The Peasant's Perspective. I got a lot of things to do with the clicker here to get the show started. Welcome to the best show we're ever going to have. I'm so excited to have you guys this morning. It was raining this morning on the way in. Seattle has started its second season, the winter season. So apparently it's going to rain pretty much every day from here on out. I'm going to have to get some tarps, throw some stuff around the house under a tarp for the winter. It's like it's like Washington State lawn decorations is blue tarps covering small piles of things that you don't want to stay wet all winter long. Oh, well, I hope you guys have your favorite beverages this morning. Hopefully nobody is getting going too early. I've got my coffee here ready to go. And yeah, good day. So I don't know if you felt it. Last night, there was a huge shift of energy about midnight Eastern. And this morning I woke up and it just felt like a new day, like a new dawn, like they were that many obstructionists less this morning going to work than yesterday. Today was the first day of the government shutdown. Woohoo! I mentioned this yesterday on the show, but I always think government shutdowns are really funny. When I was in prison, the guards kind of got on this little thing about, oh, we've got to do a shutdown. And they all knew they were going to get back pay, right? So it was like not really that big a deal for them. So it was kind of funny. It was kind of funny the way they treated it. But I think that government shutdowns are kind of lame because yes, you get a little government shutdown, but then the people take, some people take the time off. And then when they come back, they get their back pay. Some people are required to keep working and then they get their back pay. It just depends on, I guess, your job. But before we jump into the big show today, because yesterday we did have a really big event yesterday with, Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump addressing the military. But before we do that, let's talk about cryptocurrency. Let's be clear. Cryptocurrency is no longer emerging. It's here. And it's the latest move. And this latest move cements that reality in the biggest way yet. Trump Media Group just inked a massive $6.4 billion deal with Crypto.com, the world's top crypto platform. They're teaming up to scoop up $6.4 billion in CRO, the powerhouse token that fuels fast, low-fee DeFi, staking rewards, and real-world perks. I'm messing a lot of these words up, like cashback on your spends to launch America's first CRO treasury. When it's done, this new company will be the biggest CRO holder out there. I've been doing a lot of research on crypto and Bitcoin, especially recently. It is definitely the way of the future. I operate on a silver standard, but I do recommend Bitcoin to anybody who is interested in alternative currencies. Okay, so let's jump in. Yesterday, Pete Hegseth went to in Quantico, Virginia. They had a huge gathering with all of the generals and a whole bunch of high-ranking officials. Apparently, there was 900 plus generals and colonels and lieutenant colonels and who knows who else was there. And this is just a small snippet of Pete Hegseth's speech.
Starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular, hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations or really any formation and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year. every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already, but we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already. Active, guard, and reserve. This also means grooming standards. No more beards, long hair, superficial individual expression. We're going to cut our hair, shave our beards, and adhere to standards. Because it's like the broken windows theory of policing. It's like when you let the small stuff go, the big stuff eventually goes. So you have to address the small stuff. This is on duty, in the field, and in the rear. If you want a beard, you can join Special Forces. If not, then shave. We don't have a military full of Nordic pagans. But unfortunately, we have had leaders who either refuse to call BS and enforce standards, or leaders who felt like they were not allowed to enforce standards. Both are unacceptable. And that's why today, at my direction, the era of unprofessional appearance is over. No more Beardos.
No more Beardos. Those baby AI videos are just about the best thing on the internet, man. So that's a real snippet from his speech with the baby videos for those of you watching live versus the audio after the fact. A very, very cute video, a little baby AI video. But that was Pete's speech. Donald Trump gave a speech as well. Both of them, I thought, did a pretty good job. This was like resetting the orientation of the military. Glenn Beck had a guest on, and this is what he had to say about this presentation yesterday. Again, there was a lot of controversy around this meeting.
Wow, Glenn. I did not understand the reason for not just doing this on a Zoom call, or I didn't see the point really in bringing them all in until I saw this. Holy crap. This is the message is clear. I mean, it is very clear that American military power is back. It's lethal. It's deadly. It's every single reason why men and women put on the uniform and go to defend their country. I haven't seen a military speech like that outside of a movie. Or,
you know, it's so funny. I saw because he was standing in front of a giant flag. And the last time I saw this, it was done with somebody in a uniform. He wasn't in a uniform, was from the movie Patton.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like that, kind of felt like one of those that you're like, yes, you know, but the audience was very quiet. I don't know how they related to it, but that's how you felt too.
Yeah. There was like one time when I heard a few people, cheering in the crowd, but I guarantee you, these are not guys that are supposed to cheer in situations like that. But all of them, I won't say all of them. Probably 99% of them were going insane. They wanted a mosh pit and they wanted to crowd surf. That's how excited they are. I guarantee you that's how they felt.
So his perspective is that everything was really, really a good speech. Hegseth talked about, and Trump both, they talked about having the warriors back, talked about being prepared for war, talked about, peace through strength, talked about obviously military standards with grooming and PT. That's kind of a big deal, believe it or not. It's kind of a big deal. Ponyboy says military is not for everyone. That is very true. It is not for everyone. But if you decide to do it, we expect everything asked of you. I think that's the whole point. You know, when you sign up for the military, we expect you to take that oath to your grave. Ponyboy also says they're bringing back a standard back to the military. Nothing wrong with that. You're only as strong as your weakest link. It's very true. It's interesting. Most of the guys I know that were ground pounders, knuckle draggers in the military, they have a really hard time with personal fitness levels in government in general. I've heard a couple of ex-military guys, and I say a couple, more than one, go on screeds about county workers that should be fit, right? Or at least not be slobs. So yeah, it's a big deal. And Hegseth's right. It's like the broken windows theory of law enforcement. If you take care of the little things, the big things become a lot easier. It's a lot harder to get on a guy about his barracks when you're letting him grow his 5 o'clock shadow. It's a lot harder to get on him about taking care of his weapon when you're letting him grow out his 5 o'clock shadow and his barracks is messy. It's really hard to get on him about, staying at your post when you're letting him be sloppy with their weapon and you're letting their barracks be dirty and you're letting them grow a 5 o'clock shadow. It's kind of that cascade effect. Now, CNN was not so excited about this presentation. This is your classic CNN day panel, and they're doing fact checking on the president's speech. It's no wonder we can't live in a world where we can agree on anything.
Trump's address, we just heard it, to senior U.S. military officers at the Marine base at Quantico, Virginia.
Let's go live now with the CNN senior reporter, Daniel Dale, for a fact check. All right, Daniel, what stood out to you?
There were just so many false claims, and I say that after essentially every speech, unfortunately, from President Donald Trump. But I think this is notable because of the audience. He was telling a lot of lies, saying a lot of other inaccurate.
Just to interject there, like most of Trump's speech, so many false claims. We talked about this just the other day. There's a difference between hyperbole and rhetoric and, being directionally correct and being precisely correct. It's 13.1 billion. Oh, I got to fact check you. It's actually 13.89 billion. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I $11,000 off on a $13.1 billion tab? That's the kind of thing that they do here.
Accurate things regardless of his intentions to the U.S.'s top military leaders. So I want you to listen to something he said about former President Joe Biden and Biden's comments about the U.S. military.
I go around bragging about that. I said, we have the strongest military anywhere in the world. I say it. You never heard Biden say that. Never heard him say anything. But you never heard him say, did you ever hear him say, we have the strongest military? He doesn't say that. I say it.
President Biden said that over and over. This took me about 5 seconds to find on Google. One sample quote from 2023. Our U.S. military, and this is not hyperbole, I've said it for the last 2 years, is the strongest military in the history of the world, not just the strongest in the world, in the history of the world. So this is just one of many such quotes from President Biden.
Okay, so when Donald Trump says that, keep in mind, yes, he is incorrect. Right when Donald Trump said it, I was like, I'm sure Biden said at some point, we have the strongest military in the world. It's a throwaway line. It's like, God bless the troops, God save the queen. These are throwaway lines. We got the strongest military in the world. So Donald Trump's saying, you didn't hear that coming from Biden. Directionally, Donald Trump is right. Directionally, you didn't hear a lot of praise from Biden coming to the military that wasn't clearly lip service. But to fact check this, like it's, a hard and fast binary true or false point, that's kind of missing the mark of politics and rhetoric here, right? We have to be able to distinguish some of this language. And hey, listen, we do it too on the Democrats, right? Like we're going to play a clip here a little bit later when Maxine Waters says we want healthcare for everyone. We can extrapolate that she's talking about illegal immigrants too, right? Well, when Donald Trump says Biden never said that, are we directionally talking about the same thing? Like, yeah, Biden didn't support the military. That part seems kind of obvious. Did he ever throw away the line, God bless the troops or America's the greatest military in the world? Sure he did. Who cares?
And he made another false claim about President Biden and the military, falsely claiming at another point in the speech today that President Biden had suggested early in this term that he could get rid of the Space Force established under President Trump. Listen to that quote.
The Space Force turned out to be a very important thing. I said from the beginning, when Biden came into office, he wanted to terminate it. He said, and this thing called Space Force, so we could get rid of that. And he got hammered by the people in this room for even suggesting it, because it's very important.
President Biden never said that. That did not happen. What did happen in the first weeks of President Biden's term is that his then White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, offered what seemed to be a snarky or dismissive response to a question about what Biden planned to do about the future of Space Force. But that wasn't Biden himself. Even Psaki never said he was going to get rid of it. And she said the very next day that they were not getting rid of Space Force, that they would preserve it. So those were just two of a whole bunch of false claims from President Trump today. He also repeated his usual lie that the 2020 election involving him and Biden was rigged. Of course, he lost fair and square. He repeated this lie that he tells over and over, that the Congo and Venezuela both emptied their prisons to somehow allow prisoners to come to the United States as migrants. There was no evidence that any of that happened.
So what's crazy about that one is there is lots of evidence. There's lots of documentation. It's been declared in executive orders. It's been talked about endlessly by Trump and his campaign officials. So the idea that, there's just no evidence, that's just you not looking. That's all that is. That's just, hey, we haven't run that story yet, so it doesn't exist. That's all that he's saying there.
Trump's own team has never been able to offer any corroboration. And I've spoken to independent experts on both the Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, and Venezuela who have said they've seen nothing to support any of that. President Trump again repeated this claim we've been hearing from him that Biden let in 25 million migrants. That's up from President Trump's former claim of 21 million. Even that was false. So the actual number is less than half of that, even if you count the millions who were rapidly expelled from the country under COVID-era immigration provisions. So not even close. President Trump again said that President Biden provided $350 billion worth of aid to Ukraine. That's also not even close, even generously by independent expert estimates. The actual number is about half that. And we also heard President Trump repeat this claim he made at the United Nations the other day, that he has settled 7 wars. But even the examples that President Trump cited himself show that that claim is not true. For example, he mentioned the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. Well, the war involving those two countries has not actually been settled. Despite a peace agreement signed under President Trump, hostilities continue. We have good reporting from the ground. CNN was there last week showing that the fighting continues. And the peace agreement that was signed under Trump did not involve the rebel coalition allegedly backed by Rwanda that's doing much of the fighting. He also mentioned Kosovo and Serbia as a supposed war he has ended. Well, they have not actually been at war under President Trump. He previously claimed that he prevented a new war from erupting. There's thin evidence even for that. But the claim that he ended an actual war between those two entities is just not correct.
So I guess the question is up for you to decide. Is CNN being too nitpicky here? Is Kosovo and Serbia not a war, so therefore he can't count it in the 7? Is Rwanda, is this rebel group that's not participating in the peace deal that he's got down there? Does that mean it's not a resolved war? I don't know. I listened to that whole CNN thing and I'm like, I don't feel like anything you said is tangible. I have that moment like JD Vance with Martha, where she's like, it's not the whole city of Aurora, Colorado. It's just a couple apartment buildings. And JD Vance is like, Martha, do you hear yourself? It's just a couple apartment buildings in the United States of America have been taken over by a foreign prison gang. How many apartments is too many? Maybe a whole city block? Is it just a few buildings is okay? It's kind of the same thing. Oh, so it's not 25 million illegal immigrants. It's not 21 million. It's 12, 10. It's a half of that number. That's 10 million people. That's a lot of people. This is the whole, they're not eating the cats and dogs in Springfield, Ohio. Okay, who? The illegal immigrants. There's illegal immigrants in Springfield, Ohio? Yeah, 20,000 of them. Wait, but they're not eating the cats and dogs. The fact check is wrong. Okay, right? This is MSNBC, and they're, prime casting over there talking about this, and they've got a retired general on with them, and I mean, they just not happy about it. Before we jump over to that, though, G. Praiser says, good to hear for another great day. Good to be here for another great day. A wonderful speech from Hegseth reminds me of my service in the 60s. And then Marty Iso, good grief. Let Trump be Trump. He does a lot of good things. He just talks. I know. Shantini, good morning to you. Good morning, Patriots. And I think Marty Iso didn't get a shout out to you. Doug Wyatt, welcome. Glad you're here. And Faraiz, I can never say that name. And Pred Rosary Daily, everybody who's made it. So glad to have you guys all. Now, don't forget to repost the show, share the show, and leave a comment, and that would definitely help us out. All right, so this is MSNBC talking about the military speech.
Other individuals who are supposed to be leadership are using this kind of language. I call that the meritocracy myth, and it feels as though that myth of meritocracy, this idea that the women and the people of color, the LGBTQ folks, they are all there because of some help or some preference. That idea is a lie, but it feels as like it's a lie that they feel like Hegseth especially has to tell, because then they can twist the narrative, they can twist the truth, he can hide excellence. It gives cover for his own mediocrity because he is unqualified to be there.
They also had
had that line. He had that line about diversity isn't our strength. Unity is our strength, which made me wonder whether or not there is room for diverse opinions, diverse races, religions in his sense of unity.
Do you hear this?
I suspect not. You know, the language that he uses.
So one of the things Hegseth went over is no more woke stuff, no more DEI numbers, no more. We have to have so many, women in the Navy SEALs. You either make it or you don't. You either do the pull-ups or you don't. You either qualify for the programs or you don't. They're done doing or they're done doing DEI, where your skin color determines whether you get the job or position or not. And it's really about how many pull-ups, push-ups can you do? Can you pass the test? Do you qualify? Are you the best? So they're like, well, in a world like that, if it's just homogenous groupings of the best. I mean, is there room for diversity? Like, who cares? Who cares? I think that's the crazy thing that we have to realize. Who cares? Now, here are a couple of retired generals that are basically committing treason. This is hard to explain here. We're going to listen to as much of this as we can tolerate. It's MSNBC. It's hard to listen to.
And you just don't get to those positions. And for him to stand up there and lecture those people, what he was doing was showing his insecurity, his inability to command respect. And he cannot command respect because the military, as I said earlier, respects competency. And we know that you have to go through.
So what do these generals do now?
Yeah, why don't they? I mean, isn't it, should they not get together and think maybe we have to do something a little differently? Because this is not, I get the General Hertling's point, but this is not business as usual. The president is actively planning to use, he has already started. He's planning to use our service members to carry out political ends that are unconstitutional. And this puts them in such a terrible position, but what can they do?
That's the problem. We are at a crisis point, and it's a very slippery slope. If the military starts to disobey orders, starts to assert control, then we have lost our democracy, and we cannot do that. The burden is on the Republican senators. The burden is on the Congress to take its constitutionally mandated authorities and do them. It is not up to the military to determine who the civilian government is. It's up to the civilian government to control the military. If we breach that, then we're on the way to a third world status.
And it's like I said at the beginning, it's a very, very fine line in that relationship.
The words that Donald Trump used today, enemy from within, I mean, that's Hitler-esque. That is right out of Nazi Germany.
This is a retired major general, excuse me. He's comparing the commander-in-chief to Hitler on TV. Now, this isn't new, but this is a guy who's got one of those oaths that's supposed to, be honored till death.
That is not constitutional speech. The way that he talks about cities.
In fairness, I guess General Flynn kind of talks this way about the left. So
cities are full of his enemies. Why? Because they voted for Democrats. They voted blue. And our mission is to, excuse me for saying after 36 years, I think you're
entitled to own it.
But after the military is to protect our nation. The military is not to police our nation.
Their days.
But
I mean, the president made a joke looking out at the generals where he said, wow, you all look like you just came out of central casting. No, these are people who have studied, who have earned this position, who have seen combat. And that is why they are sitting there. Not because, Michael, they look like they could play the role of the general. And you and I watched. We had all.
It's one that I just kind of had to catch my breath because I'm listening to this man who served in the uniform and, talk to really these men and women who are leaders of our military. You're very familiar with the phrase crossing the Rubicon.
Obviously, it's kind of super cutting, but here's another military leader, right? Has Trump crossed the Rubicon?
And what that means. Well, today we watched the Rubicon get blowed up.
You asked if I'm talking to him. I am. I won't talk about those conversations that I've had with active duty members of the military. But the ones I've talked to are insulted by what happened today, especially the women that I've talked to, some of the women that I've spoken to. I know the men and women that were in that room. Many of them work for me. I haven't been retired that long. Some of those 3- and 4-star generals were colonels and lieutenant colonels with me in different units. So I know them. And
is this president and this Secretary of Defense not war? Because we're not at war with anybody, except to the extent that they want to create a war within our country.
We've created a bridgehead over the Rubicon. It's not just crossing it. We've put some things on the other side. There's one specific important principle is that you praise in public and you discipline in private. Well, we had a Secretary of Defense who purposely brought people into an auditorium with one camera that they got to choose. And in fact, in front of the entire nation, he basically berated them. And my jaw was dropping too as I watched that portion of the ceremony today.
I'm not offended. I'm not bothered one bit by it. I watched most of it. Hey, before I continue talking about this, we've got, if everybody that's on the show right now goes in and puts a comment in the chat, in the live chat, then I won't have to bother or pimp for chatters all month long, because it all reset today, by the way. October 1st. Welcome. Big spooky month. Okay, so I know we've been talking about this for a long time, but this is like, the central crux of the United States government. I mean, when you think about the military and what it's tasked with, if the United States government ceased to exist, the only function that we couldn't replace state by state, I mean, really, truly, if the EPA goes away, every state has an environmental protection agency or bureau. If the Department of Education goes away, every state and every school board can fill in the gap. If the Department of Transportation goes away, that's okay. Each state has a Department of Transportation and it can coordinate with other states as far as, the state crossing lines and stuff like that, right? Most of the federal government has a redundant function at the state level, except the military. I'm sorry, I'm not going to rely on Idaho National Guard to defend me from, Al-Qaeda. Okay. That is a federal function. I'm not going to rely on the North Dakota, Air National Guard to prevent Venezuelan Tren de Agua gang members who are essentially a modern day militia marching up from Venezuela. I'm not going to rely on the state National Guard to do that. That is a federal government, federal military type thing. So this right here is the central crux of all of it. Like, the United States military is kind of the glue that holds the government together, and the people support that. If there's one thing that the people support in all of government at a higher percentage, right? Congress is batting down at like 14% approval. The president's at 30% approval. Supreme Court's at 7% approval. I don't know what they're at, but the United States military is always well over 50%, probably even higher than that, right? Even Joe Biden could bring himself to say we had the strongest military in the world. So the fact that MSNBC spent so much time yesterday dragging on generals and basically just slandering Hegseth and Donald Trump, saying that they didn't have the ability to lead, they're not qualified, that you were being derogatory towards members of the military, as if the military was some social program and not precisely what it is, the Department of War, right? So I think it's a really big deal. This is a reporter. I can't remember what she's from. She's from a conservative outlet, and she was at the meeting, and she actually had a pretty good take on it. Probably the best of the day.
I went to Secretary Hegseth and President Trump's meeting with all of military leadership today. Here's what I observed. William Reese here, the White House correspondent for the Daily Caller. So today I went to Quantico Marine Base with President Trump and Secretary Hegseth, where they gathered all of the military leaders for a meeting. And the reason for the meeting was relatively unknown until today. We were packed in this auditorium on Quantico Marine Base, which I was told later was at full capacity and had 911 people there. What we heard from Secretary Hegseth and President Trump today was the direction that the military is going in, the standards that they're setting, and the excellence that they want to achieve. We heard more about the standards from Secretary Hegseth, who introduced new fitness standards for the military, and from President Trump, we really heard about the excellence that he expects from the military, but also just a lot of pride in the military and all they've been able to achieve and do in his administration. The biggest point, the message that the president made, was that he wanted the military to know, the military leadership to know, that he had their backs and 100%, and that he would always support them. Now, being in the room today, I can tell you that the president's message seemed well received. He got some laughs from military generals when he told jokes. He got some smiles, some nods in agreement. And I also saw military leadership take out notebooks and taking notes from the president's remarks. I'm told that Hegseth and Trump's remarks concludes the meeting. That was the end of the event. Very newsy Tuesday, and it's only the afternoon.
Yeah. So that is completely different reporting than what you saw from CNN and MSNBC, isn't it? Right? That they were engaged, took out notes, had some giggles and laughs. It's pretty good. So before we move on to the actual government shutdown, which is just the exciting thing that's happening right now, one of the great things about a government shutdown, there's the potential the magic money printers might slow down, which brings me to the next ad I want to read today, which isn't crypto this time, it's gold. Did you know the biggest threat to your retirement is not something that's talked about often? Our increased longevity in America means default retirement accounts like IRAs, 401ks, and TSPs may not suffice. If you have over $100,000 in your retirement account, get instant access to a free 2-minute report from Augusta Precious Metals that reveals the one step you can take to secure your financial future. Text SAFE to 35052 today. Once again, that's text SAFE to 35052 today. So we got crypto.com and Augusta Metals, both good investment outlets for patriots. Okay, so Senate Majority Leader John Thune today, or I guess it was this morning on CNBC, talked about the government shutdown and how Leader Schumer, I guess he's not Leader Schumer, just Senator Schumer, kind of walked the Democrats right into
I'm going to tell you, just in the Senate at least, politically speaking, Chuck Schumer needs a Schumer shutdown. And I think that's what we're probably careening toward. But it's up to the Democrats. This bill, this 24 pages is sitting at the desk in the Senate right now. It could be picked up and passed. The government stays open, and we can complete our appropriations work. They have the same leverage on November the 21st that they have right now. And these premium tax credits don't expire till the end of the year. So this is a made-up problem by the Democrats who desperately need to satisfy a political base that is hostile to Donald Trump. That's what this is about. This is Donald Trump, nothing more, nothing less. This doesn't have anything to do with health care. I mean, health care is obviously an issue that's important to all of us, which is why we did some of the reforms that we did in the One Big Beautiful Bill last summer. And this notion that hospitals and nursing homes are closing, give me a break. I mean, these provisions don't take effect until 2028, and we put $50 billion in the bill to support rural hospitals, which they cut in their proposal. So this is a made-up issue for them. It's a political issue, and frankly, what we need to do is keep the government open. It hurts the American people when we don't. They have the same leverage on November the 21st that they have today.
Carlite says, let's see if Trump cuts another 100,000 jobs next week and see if we're still in a shutdown. Oh, I believe he's going to cut a lot more than 100,000 jobs when this all gets down to it. Okay, so JD Vance shared this, and this is actually really quite funny. So JD Vance was talking about what the Democrats did, what they wanted in order to avert this horrible government shutdown, which to me is like, woohoo, what a reprieve, right? He said they came in wanting insurance or healthcare for illegal immigrants.
Very important points. First of all, those subsidies, while many of them are important, Tony, they don't expire until next year. So the idea that you have to shut down the government in early October over subsidies that don't expire for many months is preposterous. Nobody buys it, not even many Senate Democrats who, of course, voted with us last night to reopen the government. The second point I want to make is if you look at the Democrats' initial demands, the reason why this process really fell off the ramps from the very beginning, they came to us saying that they wanted to give massive amount of taxpayer benefits to illegal aliens. That's ridiculous. And you're certainly not going to shut down the government because we refuse to give taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens. But that is the situation that we now find ourselves in. Now, if Senate Democrats or House Democrats or anybody else wants to come to the Oval Office, look, I'll go down to the Capitol right now to talk about how to enhance subsidy support for people's health care. We want to have that conversation. And frankly, there's a lot of common area of agreement on that. What you don't do is hold the economy hostage and shut down the government because we're not giving you everything that you want. You go back to Barack Obama, you go back to George W. Bush. Everybody agreed you don't shut down the government over policy disagreements. Unfortunately, Senate Democrats don't think that way today.
I think I need to be convinced as to what a government shutdown is that's so bad. Right? It seems like every time they go through this song and dance, I'm like, and the problem with the shutdown is what? Oh, the librarian at the Library of Congress might not be on duty. And the Smithsonian employees might not get their subsidized checks. Tell me more. Tell me more. There's a scene from Parks and Rec where Juan Swanson, who's the director of the Parks Department, the little town goes bankrupt and they have to do a shutdown. And here he is, a government employee, but he's a libertarian. And he's like, the government shut down, right? Here's Maxine Waters, right, doing her. I'll tell you what, Maxine Waters, she is the best at just telling us how it really is. Here's Maxine Waters trying to run the Democrat talking points as to why this shutdown is going to happen and Trump bad, blah, blah, blah. And she says the thing that you're going to hear in just a moment. Hakeem Jeffries deny, but she says it pretty plain as day.
Do Democrats want to prioritize the health care of illegal aliens over a government shutdown? Because if the government does shut down, American
Excuse
employees are going to
me,
be furloughed.
stop it right there. We're not prioritizing. What we're doing is saying simply we want to keep the government open and we want to work with the Republicans and have a bipartisan agreement to keep this government open, and healthcare is at the top of our agenda.
But are Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding healthcare for everybody. We want to save lives.
Okay.
We want to
So-
make sure that
everybody. Okay.
that healthcare is available to those who would die, but having the help of their government.
So you're good with the government?
Okay, so unless you have the help of your government and you're going to die, we want to provide health care. Fair enough. But this whole your government thing, isn't that like the whole citizenship question? Like, if I'm a citizen, it's my government. Otherwise, I'm a visitor and it's your government. Okay. So if I'm not from America and I didn't come here properly, then it's not my government, is it? It's their government. Oh, I did stop sharing. Well, that was the genesis and the major point of there. Again, Maxine Waters says the quiet part out loud. Now, Hakeem Jeffries, they tried to pin him down on the squawk box about this, and it ends with Maxine Waters' little quote that we already heard.
You kind of danced around the illegal. You do want to provide health care to illegal immigrants that are here right now.
That's a Republican talking point, and it's shameful that you would continue. Of course not. I just said repeatedly that it is not.
But aren't Democrats demanding health care for illegal aliens?
Democrats are demanding health care for everybody.
You kind of.
So I'm not demanding health care for illegal immigrants. I just want it for everybody, including the illegal immigrants. It's like, geez, man, these people. It happens on both sides. In fairness, if I had a committed, progressive, Democrat, leftist worldview, I'd probably think, Donald Trump was a crazy madman, but I tend to think he's like the most sane guy at the till. He's just got a big mouth and he puts out a lot of really funny memes. Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, the saddest couple on TV, honestly and truly. This last week, for whatever reason, I found myself very reflective on my time in prison. I don't know if it's finally, there's been enough time that's passed that I'm able to process some of the things that I kind of like compartmentalized. I don't know if it's also, as time goes, a lot like wounds heal. And now I look back at certain moments with more fondness and kind of smiling. There's Steve Rinella from the show Meat Eater talks about, mentioned something when he was on some hunting trip with Joe Rogan and it was raining and they were held up in their tent. And he's like, suffering makes things memorable. And we look back on these as good memories, even though that when we were going through it, it was hard. I kind of feel a little bit that way about prison. Like I look back and it was very difficult. There were things I don't ever want to repeat, but at the same time, I learned a lot about myself and trying to look back with gratitude. Well, when I see MSNBC and I see Morning Joe and Mika, I think so often of waking up at 5 a.m. in prison, going and making my instant coffee with all we had for water on the floor was hot water, right? Go make my instant coffee, go sit down in the TV room and watch the news. And I'd watch on the white TV and I could control the remote there because I'd built up some seniority, get going in at 5 a.m. I became the default remote controller from about 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. It's a big deal in prison. If you can control the remote, that's power. So I controlled the remote. And then I had my white TV, and over here was the neutral TV, which mostly the Muslims watched. And they'd watch CNN and MSNBC, and I'd watch Newsmax and Fox News. And we had earpieces. That's how you tuned in through the FM radio. It's kind of how you tune into the TV. So, you could jump back and forth between the TVs. So I watched a fair amount of Morning Joe. And these guys, the only thing I can say about them is they know what they're doing. They're spinsters, and they know what they're doing. They've drinking the Kool-Aid, but it's a self-interested drink. It's like, okay, I make more money. I got my TV contract. I got my good cocktail parties and whatever, social life they have. That's what they're doing it for. They're not doing it because they actually believe it, right? Joe Scarborough spent time in Congress. He's been behind the curtain. He doesn't believe the talking points on either side. Mika, her dad, was like Kissinger's right hand, like huge architect of American foreign policy. She doesn't believe the party stuff either. She understands power. So when I hear stuff like this, what they're going on, these are mental gymnastics that they're doing to try to maintain some type of, upper hand in all of this.
I also just don't understand why we're blaming the Democrats for Republicans lying. At the highest level of office, they have the biggest megaphone. They have TV networks that repeat the lies and say things on those networks with no consequence. And the things they say.
Think about everything Mika's saying contrasted with what we believe about the very network she's talking on. Yet Trump calls it MSDNC, and she's literally listing off the advantages that Republicans have with the media, which is exactly what the Democrats
things
have.
On those networks with no consequence. And the things they say are violent. Okay, so they're not only repeating the lies, but adding to this coarseness. Yeah. And there's no consequence to it. And we're blaming the Democrats? Yeah. We're blaming the Democrats for this. What exactly are the Democrats supposed to do?
You keep repeating. They're supposed to fight back.
Yes.
They're supposed to know. They're
and
supposed
lie
to
as
do
well?
like
what exactly?
No. Bill Clinton just completely abused and used Republicans in every government shutdown. I know, I was there. He was smart enough politically to do it. Barack Obama knew how to always get the best of Republicans. All right. We're not blaming Democrats for Republicans' lies. We're saying the Democrats at some point have to figure out how to answer those lies. And that's not whining. The whining comes from Democratic leaders that still don't have an answer to Republican lies 10 years into Donald Trump's terms.
Jen, how do we answer the lies?
So here's the problem they have. Donald Trump's lies. Okay, so let's list one of the lies that they're giving as an example. One of the lies would be the Democrats just want to give illegal aliens health insurance. That's what this is all about. To avoid the shutdown, they want us to agree to give illegal aliens health insurance. Well, that's a lie. That's not what this is about. We want insurance for everyone. Well, we don't dispute that insurance for citizens, but does everyone include illegal immigrants? Yes, everyone. Okay, so you want illegal immigrants to have health care. We didn't say that. We said we want you Democrats can't defend their talking point because it is inclusive of what the Republicans are saying, that it includes illegal immigrants, right? When the Republicans say certain things that are rooted in truth or something that's clearly common sense or observable, the Democrats can't counter those talking points except with noise, which is why Newt Gingrich here is saying the Democrats have been set up to basically completely lose at this particular shutdown battle.
This is insanity. Mm-hmm. We know from the work we do at America's New Majority Project that there are two things the American people feel about this shutdown. One, they do not want increased spending. Two, they do not want the government closed. So what do you have? you have the Schumer shutdown, where Chuck gets up and says, I'm going to close the government to get more money. Now, that means he's on the wrong side of both issues. This is insanity.
He's on the wrong side of both issues. Shut the government down to get more money, right? And he's basically positioned himself to where he's kind of having to own this. I already played the clip of J.D. Vance saying that they wanted illegal immigrants to get insurance. And really, extending the funding doesn't change anything from what is here right now. They want to throw another $1 trillion at it to ensure that illegal immigrants get insurance well beyond the, what did Thune say, 2028 when this stuff runs out? That's pushing it pretty far out there. This is Russ Vought, who's the director of Office of Management and Budget, who is a huge fiscal hawk and big time about depleting the size and scope of the federal government. And he believes that they can win in this shutdown to advance their reduction of force at Congress. So he feels like the Democrats are going to own this layoff round because of the shutdown. Trump has now an incredible amount of power in order to make cuts permanent.
I mean, estimate for us. Give us some ballpark numbers here. We've already had some sizable reductions in force. Actually, there's a number 300,000 floating around for this calendar year. That may or may not be the right number, but that number is floating around. Now, if there's a budget shutdown, as our own chat program suggested, almost ineluctably will be a budget shutdown, then you have the authority to reduce the federal employee count by roughly how much?
Well, I'm going to let that those kinds of questions extend until tomorrow and the days after. Right now, where we are, we have hours to go before a government shutdown, and it can be.
Let me give you code speak for what he just said there. He doesn't want to tell the Democrats how many people they plan on laying off permanently if this shutdown happens. Trump has set this up perfectly where he's like, well, if we get an extension with the Democrats' help, that'd be great. It's all teed up. It's a small extension. Just do it. Just do it. But if you don't, okay, it's your fault, Schumer. I got no dog in the fight, right? We just do whatever. If they tell how many people they plan on firing, that is one more thing that the Democrats can add to their calculus as to why they would avoid the shutdown, which is my belief that Trump actually wants the shutdown.
Be avoided. And then we'll get in tomorrow. The preparation is all done. We have many options, but we're going to get in tomorrow and see where we are. And we're going to manage this shutdown and try to keep the American people from the havoc that the Democrats have caused on with their crazy demands. But let it be said, there are all manner of authorities to be able to keep this administration's policy agenda moving forward, and that includes reducing the size and scope of the federal government, and we will be looking for opportunities to do that.
And you've made that very clear to Mr. Schumer. It doesn't seem to move him, Russ Vought. That's what I don't understand. It will be worse. I mean, if I were he, and I'm most certainly not, but if I were he, I would want a continuing resolution and discuss all this stuff. I wouldn't want to hand the circular over to you, and he'll have to take some measures that he's not going to like one darn bit.
Well, I think he's got some time over the next several hours to come back from the brink, to work with his moderates to get a continuing resolution passed. We'll see how these votes come up, and then we'll see where we are in the morning.
All right. Well,
one thing to consider with all of this, too, is a government shutdown does affect the Department of Justice, and it does affect prosecutions. It could definitely slow down the grand conspiracy investigations, prosecutions, stuff like that. Definitely could slow that down. So that might be one of the reasons why the Democrats are willing to drive off the cliff with this, is it could slow down accountability. Here's a little bit more from Kudlow.
And the GOP, unlike past years, the GOP probably will come out ahead on this because Mike Johnson, Speaker Johnson, got a clean bill through the House. No increases, no cuts, just the same level of spending until folks can reconvene. This is different than other shutdown threats. But the other thing is, I don't want to underestimate, if it needs be, it needs be. Then instead of being furloughed, federal employees will be cut. That's just going to be part of the deal.
Yeah.
And that is a trap that Schumer is falling into, because frankly, the Republicans couldn't get all the cuts they wanted in the legislation for one big, beautiful bill. And I got to tell you, again, I'd rather not see a shutdown, but if you're going to do it, I say fine. Then put the axe down. As the president said, a lot will lose their jobs. These are federal workers. These are predominantly in the Washington, D.C. area. And I hate to say it, but they're predominantly Democrats.
There you
Hate to say it. It's gonna be a bloodbath out there. Totally rhetorical. Now, Donald Trump put out, I think I played this yesterday. There was the meme with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, with Hakeem Jeffries wearing the sombrero. Well, Hakeem Jeffries he's just not having this. He does not like being made fun of like that. And so Hakeem Jeffries, found himself a microphone and told Donald Trump, "Say it to my face," of which this is the response to that. This is so funny. Donald Trump is totally trolling these guys.
And Mr. President, the next time you have something to say about me, say it to my face.
Deport all illegal aliens. I repeat, deport all illegal aliens.
Okay, so Donald Trump is like, Hakeem, deport all illegal aliens. I don't know. Maybe we could do it before they become, the superintendent of public schools in Iowa. It's crazy. So Donald Trump was trolling Hakeem Jeffries. This is what Hakeem Jeffries says. So, okay, I probably should have pulled the picture. Sometimes I really neglect to pull the Trump information, right? Because it's like, I just assume if you're alive, you probably saw it on some social media feed, but that's really not the case with our audience, because what I found out is you peasants don't engage in a ton of social media. You guys actually tune into the show so that you don't have to listen to other media, which is actually what's encouraging me to make sure I play lots of clips, because you can get it all here, right? The peasant's perspective. So Hakeem Jeffries, so Donald Trump yesterday had this meeting with Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries in the Oval Office. After he did the military speech, went back to the Oval Office, had this meeting. And at some point during this meeting, some Trump 2028 hats showed up on the Resolute desk. And so there's some really great pictures of Trump, pointing at Hakeem Jeffries over the hat and stuff like that. And allegedly they offered these Democrats some Trump 2028 hats. So this is what Hakeem Jeffries is responding to on this CNN news piece here. It's kind of fun.
Concluding, who's serious and who's deadly unserious?
When he tried to hand you that Trump 2028 hat, what was your reaction?
Well, actually, he did not try to hand Leader Schumer and I the Trump 2028 hat. They just randomly appeared in the middle of the meeting on the desk. It was the strangest thing ever. And I just looked at the hat, looked at JD Vance, who was seated to my left, and said, "Don't you got a problem with this?" And he said no comment. And that was the end of it.
All right.
Concluding, who's serious and who's deadly unserious?
I looked over to JD Vance. I was like, "Are you okay with this?" JD Vance, I'm sure, is like, no comment. Oh my gosh. Well, speaking of, we have a new, never mind. Maybe not at all. Speaking of, we have a new, I'm only going to try that so many times. What's going on here? All right, we'll deal with it in a minute. Okay, so Trump trolls Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer in the Oval Office. This is, again, two sides of the story, right? We got to hear both sides. This is JD Vance telling his side of the story on the hats.
With 28 hats. The Trump trolling him with 28 hats.
Yeah, thank you, Lawrence. That's the most important part. They're also the Trump 2028 hats, which I think made the majority or the minority leader in both the House and the Senate very uncomfortable. But look, it was the four of them plus me and the president, and we were having a very good conversation about healthcare policy. But the president finally sort of threw up his hands and said, "Guys, let's absolutely work on this healthcare policy disagreement. We want to fix this issue for the American people, but we're not going to be taken hostage. We're not going to."
The Trump trolling them.
They're not going to be taken hostage on the issue of healthcare for illegal aliens. And the thing with, geez, man, sometimes the sound on that is just, it's like every now and then a new gremlin shows up, and the new gremlin is when I stop sharing, I have something open, it kind of blurbs my sound. I don't like it. Okay. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee. I am on my second cup of coffee this morning. Still haven't tried 1775 coffee. Now's your shot. The 1775 starter kit just dropped. Only 1,000 units. You're getting the bold, dark roast that hits hard, the smooth, medium roast, and the Vitality mushroom coffee for clean energy and laser focus, no crash. All single origin, small batch, toxin-free, and mold-free. Plus, you're also getting a gold spoon clip because freedom isn't scooped with plastic. A frother strong enough to stir up your coffee and your mother-in-law's opinions, and a black 1775 tumbler. $170 worth of coffee and gear, yours for $99. This is for the ones who've been watching 1775 blow up on Rumble, wondering if it's actually worth it. Spoiler, it is. Go to 1775coffee.com/studio and grab your starter kit before they're gone. Bold beans, clean fuel, and a morning routine that stands for something just like Rumble does. I actually really enjoy doing our little ads. It's kind of fun. Good conservative groups. And yeah, it's fun. I got to say, podcasting's, this is a passion project. So it's fun, the fact that there's even ads available, because we broadcast like 300 episodes and I had no sponsors or any revenue opportunities whatsoever. We're so in the red on this podcast. It'll be a while before we get out of the hole on this one, but it's so much fun. Okay, so there was this clip that Jamie Raskin that happened with Jamie Raskin, and I wanted to play this. And this is one of those ones where contextually, I don't know if this matters as much, but it's kind of more. If you look at Jamie Raskin's flippant attitude, he does this thing that is reserved for people who are standing on truth, right? The unimpeachable, undoubtable, obvious things. This is Michael Knowles when he goes, listen, there's two genders. We're not debating that anymore. At this point, we're debating your mental illness. We're not debating the idea that there's two genders. We're not going to debate the idea that there's a nighttime and a daytime by arguing on the margins of twilight and dusk, right? We're not doing that. We're not doing that. It's not a slippery slope for certain things. So this is another one of those things where Jamie Raskin's trying to do the thing where you just don't debate things, right? Oh, no debate, no dissent, no questioning, no fact checking. It's just platitudes and blanket statements. And if on the right we're doing this, then it's wrong. It's my belief that on the right, when we make these blanket statements, it's because we're standing at the axiom, right? Two genders. There's nothing more I have to say or debate. I don't have to open a biology textbook. I can just observe it, okay? So here's Jamie Raskin kind of having that same flippant attitude with things like, the 2020 election. I don't think it works.
Congressman Raskin, can I just ask you a quick question?
Who are you with?
Lindell TV. I'm just curious. You say that Trump is stifling free speech,
I'm
but
sorry,
what
you're
about
with whom?
Lindell TV?
A little bit more about it if you would.
Mike
Discuss-
Lindell, the My Pillow guy. He's been very outspoken about
free speech.
Absolutely. We are absolutely a free speech network, and we love the First Amendment. Shouldn't he have the right to speak freely in America?
Is he in jail? I didn't know that. I would. Oh, so what happened to him?
Jail,
oh, well, what happened
he's
to him?
undergoing many lawsuits. But you say
so people sued him? You mean does he sue people too?
no?
He's never sued anybody?
You say
I
President Trump is
thought he did sue
stifling
people.
speech, but Biden called for all the tech CEOs to censor anyone who had any dissenting opinions on COVID. Can you comment on that? I think both sides need to respect the First Amendment, and I don't think that happened under Biden.
Do you think that Donald Trump or Joe Biden should be taking over colleges and universities and deciding what their curriculum is?
Do you think that Biden should have deplatformed anyone who was present at the Capitol on January 6th? Do you think Biden should have shut down anyone who was anti-vaccine?
How did Biden have any power to deplatform anyone from January 6th?
See, and therein lies the problem. How did Biden have the power? He asked them to do it. They wrote it in emails, Jamie Raskin. He asked them to do it. There are congressional reports. There is Jim Jordan has put out report. Facebook did it. X did it. Google just admitted it. Jamie, where have you been?
Tech CEOs, Mark Zuckerberg himself said that Biden instructed him to deplatform and censor anyone who said anything about COVID.
I assume you believe also that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. Then it's
okay. Do you notice how he immediately goes into a rhetoric question? Oh, well, you believe he won the election. Well, are you saying you don't believe the admissions of Zuckerberg, Musk, and Sanjay Pajar or whatever at Google that they were influenced by the Biden regime to stifle free speech. Do you believe in the 2020 election? One question first, please.
I'm starting to pick up a little conspiracy theory mindedness.
Is that a conspiracy theory or is that a fact? Trump won the 2020 election.
Wait, you think that he won the 2020 election?
Look at the smile on his face.
Did.
He knows. He knows they stole it.
Things. You know that, right?
Oh, I do?
You believe, some lunatic right-wing conspiracy theories. And I'm a little troubled about your mental health, to tell you the truth.
The congressman is troubled about my mental health.
Really,
That's so kind of you that you're so worried about me. But thank you for your concern, and we would love to talk with you further.
All right, good.
Best way-
If you think Donald Trump won the 2020 election, you need to spend some time with somebody who can help you through that.
Do you think there's anything flawed with our election system?
Oh, sure. I'm working on it all the time. I think we should have a national popular vote for president, which Donald Trump used to believe in until he decided the Electoral College was on his side, and then he withdrew that opinion, and now he supports the Electoral College.
Do you think the vote...
Well, at least he's genuine in that part. He's all for demagoguery. Oh, man. I just wanted to play that, right? Jamie Raskin, he turns around. Well, you believe, listen, we can talk about 2020. I mean, I could pull that. You believe Biden won 2020? What are you, crazy? How do you explain the hockey stick curve in the middle of the night, right? At least we can have a debate and discuss it. I'm willing to back it up. Jamie Raskin, he won't do that. I was free and clear. Why? Because we voted on it in the middle of the night. Oh, okay. So not based on any kind of assessment of evidence or anything like that. All the lawsuits were thrown out. Yeah, because the judiciary is feckless. You know the complaints your constituents have about you not being able to stand up to Donald Trump? Well, we kind of have the same complaints about the judiciary not being able to stand up to you guys, right? You guys always are pressuring him into doing things that are anti-law. Okay, so we've talked about this school board or this superintendent of public curriculum in Colorado that turns out he was an illegal immigrant. Became in charge of our children's education, right? So here's a little breakdown of that case. We're going to listen to a couple things because this story is kind of growing. It started out as a small story, but the implications of this are really far reaching. And here's the thing. I talk a lot about the internal logic of a thing. When the internal logic of a thing is set up a certain way, you're going to get certain results. And this is one of those results. When the internal logic of how they've set up licensing and ID cards and social security numbers and employment verification, et cetera, it leaves these loopholes the size of barn doors that literally tractor trailer drivers can drive U-turns on the interstate through, right? That's how big these loopholes have been for, quote, illegals to get legal jobs. And meanwhile, everybody's running around going, well, if he's in a semi-truck, he must be legal, right? Because there's so much licensing to get there. Turns out it's not the case. Well, if you're a superintendent of public schools, of curriculum, I would just assume that you're employment documentation checks out. Apparently, not so much the case, okay? Apparently in Iowa, they had a little, what's that old play? The Music Man came into town and sold his bill of goods.
We're learning new details about Des Moines Public School Superintendent Dr. Ian Roberts. He was detained by ICE agents last Friday, September 26th. According to ICE officials, an immigration judge issued an order of removal for May of 2024. According to ICE officials, Dr. Roberts came to the U.S. on a student visa in 1999. Now, today I dug through Iowa courts and public records and found that Dr. Roberts had received 2 speeding tickets, one in 2023 and another in 2024. Both of these came after Dr. Roberts started as DMPS superintendent. Now, Iowa law states that you must apply for an Iowa driver's license within 30 days of moving to the state. Now, interestingly enough, both of these speeding tickets listed different Maryland addresses for Dr. Roberts. Of course, I also used his name to look him up on the Maryland Board of Elections website and found that in 2017, he was registered to vote. Of course, only people who are U.S. citizens are allowed to vote in U.S. elections. This is a story we will continue to follow and try to provide answers as we work to gather more information.
And not only was he registered to vote, but somebody went out and looked and found out he did vote, which is, by the way, a minimum of 5 years in prison. Who knows what the time is for some of those other deals. Now, the school board finally officially fired this gentleman and accepted his resignation. Fox News did a little bit of reporting on this. Turns out he did provide some documentation and the school never followed up on it.
So the school board chair, Jackie Norris, says that Roberts had represented himself when he was looking for employment there in Des Moines as an American citizen. This is what she said.
We can tell you that on his I-9, he stated he was a citizen and he provided 2 forms of verification, a driver's license and a social security card. As is typical in other organizations, this is what employers ask of their employees. And as an employer, we trust employees to fill out the required forms truthfully and provide valid documentation.
Again, we trust employees to fill out the required forms truthfully. Ronald Reagan said it best, trust but verify.
Absolutely, John. Trust but verify. And we do have a word as well that he was registered to vote in Maryland. And I know as a former commissioner of elections in Iowa that we have forms and you have to swear on that form that you are an American citizen. But it doesn't mean that we don't verify. So this is completely on the school board. They were trusting this gentleman, but they did not verify. And again, with a weapons charge that they knew about but allowed him to explain away, they did not go back and verify his status with that incident either.
So I look at my screen and I went blank. Oh, can you hear me, guys? Gosh darn it! My thing went blank. Or maybe it didn't. Maybe I'm back. Am I back? Huh. I don't know. I thought for a second I did that thing where I lost all my sound in my internet like I did the other day. I was like, no. Okay, so they didn't verify anything. They didn't verify anything on his employment, and they let him talk himself out of a weapons charge. Now, here's the thing. This was pointed out. Cernovich posted this, and it comes from Right Angle News Network. Breaking, in a massively disturbing revelation, it has been revealed that Democrat states such as New York and California are issuing CDLs, commercial driver's license, and presumably regular driver's licenses, to illegals as no name given, with Republican states like Oklahoma stating they have already apprehended over 125 individuals with such IDs. So if you look here at the driver's licenses, you literally have people who have, let's see, this one's got a whole name. This one, no name given with information blacked out. This one, non-domiciled CDL, no name given, New York State. California, no name given. California, no name given. California, no name given. Another one, no name given. Looks like this one here, no name given. So you've got multiple driver's license here in this example of no name given. Who is the DMV worker who issued those driver's licenses? Think about that for just a second, right? Do you think they were like, I feel like this goes the intent of the point of a driver's license, to issue a driver's license to no name given? You know, it just doesn't feel like, if you tell the cop no name given, and then you hand him a driver's license and it says no name given, does the cop suspect funny business going on? And how far back does he do his investigation into no name given, right? It's actually pretty stunning when you think about the things that have to fall apart systematically to get to the point to where no name given can get a commercial driver's license or a license at all. You can see, it's almost like it's Machiavellian. Here's a big problem: lack of identification, lack of proper vetting, lack of proper, we need biometric data to make sure these people are who they are. If we had biometric data, we would easily know that he was registered to vote in Maryland and trying to get a job in Iowa, right? The biometric data would attach them together. We need real ID. They set up this problem. In the law, there are requirements as to how to prove ID to get a driver's license. What happened that no name given was able to acquire a driver's license? Can no name given get insurance? Can no name given be sued in a court of law? Can no name given be, tracked down? Like, it's insanity. And here's the thing. The system got set up this way. This is U.S. Citizen and Immigration Services, so basically part of Homeland Security, and they confirmed how broken the system was.
Some of this should have been caught earlier in previous administrations. What
wasn't being done in your view that should have been done in previous years?
Well, you're aware of the CHNV, the parole programs that the previous administration was involved in, bringing people in. People here were allowed to sponsor individuals to come in from certain countries. As I said, we found organizations here that were involved in sponsoring many individuals. They did not know necessarily the individuals they were sponsoring. They were doing almost a blanket sponsorship. That is fraud. That's something that should have been caught. It's something that I know the previous administration was aware of how the sponsorships were happening, and no action was taken. I'm glad to see that we're taking action.
So people were able to get sponsored into the country, which created this aura of validity to what they were getting. And that's how they ended up getting IDs. But they knew it was fraudulent. They knew that they were just put no name given on the list, and when no name given shows up the border, he'll get fast tracked into Nashville, right? That's basically what they were doing. Here is sometimes I forget these guys' names. This is Jeff Angelo, and he's talking about this situation and how this deal out in Iowa kind of pulls back the curtain on the scale of this immigration fraud. These people are everywhere.
This is such a wild story. I saw this over the weekend. I thought to myself, what the heck is happening in Iowa? Because there's a bunch of stories bubbling up lately. But the school board, Jeff, is saying that he worked in various districts for more than 2 decades. But you say there's more in his background that's kind of unclear. What can you tell us tonight?
Right. Now that we understand that there was a final order of removal, Laura, media and a lot of internet sleuths are on the case. And we're finding out that we have different birth dates for Ian Roberts. I don't call him doctor because even that's unclear. Ian Roberts, he may have inflated his resume. He may not, in fact, be a PhD. He's given different circumstances of his birth, claiming to be born in Guyana, claiming to be born in Brooklyn. So his past is rather fuzzy, Laura. What we have is basically a 2025 version of the Music Man back in Iowa. There's a Flim Flam man that's come to town and bedazzled the Des Moines school board.
So think about that. If you don't need proper documentation to get a driver's license, well, why not just check the box saying you have a PhD too? I mean, people don't seem to check information around here. We're so trusting that the DMV workers like, oh, no name given from Guyana? Oh, yeah, sure. Born in Brooklyn? You bet. Here's your driver's license. Okay. It's amazing parents these days giving their kids names like no name given, you know? It's just nutty. It's insanity. But there's no rebutting the Republican talking points. I know, because we say things like, you know, to have a job as the superintendent of public education, maybe you should be an American and have like, you know, actual qualifications and, you know, be able to fill out a I-9 competently. It's just crazy how that works. Now, the other thing that's been going on has been that this media narrative about left-wing versus right-wing violence. So I'm going to play this clip. This is the pollster from Rasmussen is on with Steve Bannon, and he's talking about something that I actually found kind of surprising. In my world, it's very clear that the left is the source of the violence, right? Here in the Pacific Northwest, you don't particularly see a bunch of MAGA out there rioting. It's pretty frequent that you see people on the left protesting and doing other events that raise to the level of being a riot. So the idea, what Rasmussen presents here, is that in America, in the zeitgeist, the general opinion is that most of the political violence actually comes from the right. And this stems from the branding and the successful psyoping that was around January 6th. So let's take a listen to him, and then we're going to talk a little bit about that political violence narrative.
100%. Because, you know, I think the way opinion works is that, okay, over time, people are going to start getting what they want and ease off. They say, you know what, immigration's not so bad. You know what, I can get a job. I don't think we're there yet at all, because half of 18 to 29-year-olds say that it's not possible for anybody who wants to work to find a job in this environment. That's the kind of thing I think we need to be targeting. But it happens slowly and then all of a sudden at once. And that's because Americans will be like, all right, I don't care so much about the border anymore. And then all of a sudden you'll see something like a picture of Elian Gonzalez. And America will be like, oh, okay. Well, the zeitgeist drives that. And right now the zeitgeist is seeing Charlie Kirk with a hole in his neck and Irina Zarutska getting basically her throat slit on public transportation, right? That's what Americans, I think, are latching onto. And, what I do is I go on Twitter and I watch the short little snippets of Antifa people getting punched in the face over and over and over again. And so that's what's the discussion on Twitter. Now, obviously, the fake discussion on liberal echo chambers is saying very different things. And so you have the temperature rising on both sides. We've been talking about this for a very long time. The only thing is I think on one side, it's like very, very heavily astroturfed in a way that like we don't even know. So what I can tell Donald Trump is there's some public opinion polling that you look at and you say, you know what, America wants this. It's the right thing to do. I should give America this. And then there's other polling that you look at and you say, well, America doesn't really know. They're not sure. And yet there's something important that has to get done to fix this stuff. And I think it's uncovering all of the reasons that we have I'll just give you one example. So one of the things that we asked about very recently, we've been talking about civil war. We've been talking about increased threats of political violence. 90% of America now is concerned about political violence. That's a really high number. 70% very concerned. That's the number one issue now. It's no longer inflation. And yet when we ask them, well, okay, first, what are you more concerned about? Domestic or foreign terrorism? 60% say domestic, 20 foreign roughly. But then who are you more afraid of? Right-wing extremists or left-wing extremists? America says right-wing extremists by a couple points, even in polling that shows that Donald Trump is up. Now, obviously, some people don't.
Unmute myself. That is stunning to me that the vast majority of Americans off the top of their head think that political violence is going to come from the right. Again, we all live in an echo chamber of one form or another. And I'm just looking at my own echo chamber and I'm like, obviously no one in my ecosystem really thinks that way, that the violence truly comes from the right. So the fact that that's the case is kind of surprising. So what does Mark say how do we get to that point?
Don't know right wing, left wing, what it means. But we also still have January 6th hanging over the head of America. And that was a very effective psychological operation. It deeply scarred a lot of people. We talked about this a lot on your show. When you have basically 25% of Republicans saying it's the biggest threat to democracy since the Civil War, you're not going to wash that stuff away really quickly. And okay, so Donald Trump finally on September 3rd, I guess, put the Loudermilk, they're running a commission now. I guess it's been really quiet. But until stuff comes out to resolve that dissonance, people think the right wing is more violent in America because of January 6th and because of the way that the left has been framing the right as violent extremists. Democrats are more concerned about political violence than Republicans are. And that's like a week after Charlie Kirk was shot. So that's just the reality. So again, these lies, all of this deception, America doesn't even understand the depths of these lies. It was really just like one brutal psychological warfare regime for 4 years, basically clown world. And you have to put that stuff right. And they're doing good stuff. Like today, Hegseth coming up and saying, well, sorry about your feelings, but combat is about killing the enemy and not about making women feel better about their physical stature. That's not popular. People want women in combat. But you know what? It's the right thing. And so my policy, people ask me what my politics are. Voters should get what they want, unless it's stupid. And so, obviously,
voters should get what they want, unless it's stupid, like free healthcare for illegal immigrants. He's right there. So he's correct, right? January 6th created this psychological idea that the right was on the verge of just boiling over, and that we're the ones who promote political violence. I don't really see it that way, but one of the things he says on there, and this is the key. He says on the left, they believe that the violence is being caused by the right and that it's increasing. But even a week after the Charlie Kirk assassination, the right doesn't see political violence in this country as a top problem like the left does. Why is that? First and foremost, the left, through stations like CNN, MSNBC, and the handful of independent sources they have been slandering J6 consistently for coming up on 5 years now, right? Constant drumbeat slander against it. You haven't really seen that on the right, right? On the right, it's a lot of MAGA grandmas walking through the Capitol. On the left, it's the same replay image of the tunnel outside of the Capitol over and over again, where Roseanne Boylan died, right? They amplify that footage and make it sound like it's violence rather than it's men defending a dead woman on the Capitol steps. So, and also on the left, they've become extremely sympathetic with the LGBTQ movement. And that movement has a history of being persecuted, right? I mean, movies like Brokeback Mountain and different things kind of highlight the prejudice and bigotry against the LGBT movement. Now, you throw in the TQ, and all of a sudden LGB and TQ don't really get along. But if you're TQ, you feel under fire. Think about it. Can't have your pronouns out in public anymore. You're being shamed. You're being told that, I've transitioned to be a trans woman. Nope, you're a man. Sounds very aggressive, like they said about Pete Hegseth's speech. It's so aggressive. They do feel under attack. I think if you lived in America today and you were transgender, you would feel like the government was now against you. Now, we don't think that. We're like, you're going to have the same rights as all of us. The point is, you're not a special princess anymore. Right? That's the point. Oh, I don't have to buy into your delusion because you're not a special princess. Just like you didn't have to buy into my delusion of Christianity or Zoroism or whatever belief system you have that isn't shared commonly with everyone. That's your delusion. That's your belief system. Right? And I say delusion flippantly, not as a derogative statement, but that's your delusion. I don't have to buy into your delusion. That's the whole point. You've tried to come over here and tell me that I had to say certain pronouns and blah, 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 blah. We're done. It's just over. So until that threat of violence against that small group of TQ people in that movement subsides, right? The left is going to think they're being attacked, which I think is going to make them project all violence onto the right rather than seeing it for what it really is. Look at all the mass shooters that have happened. The last 15 or 20, 19 of them have been totally left-wing. Maybe there's a right-wing shooter in there. I don't know. They seem so rare. All right, guys, we've reached that time in the show today where it is time for me to jump over to the private. We're going to be talking about Randi Weingarten, former, she's over the Teachers Union for the United States, talking about how the Trump administration are Nazis, and she's encouraging people to wear paper clips as a throwback to World War II. We're going to be hearing from Dick Durbin completely. Actually, we're going to play that before we leave. We're going to play Dick Durbin, and then we're going to go to private. And anyways, we're going to continue that conversation on the other side. Also, we're going to hear some amazing news now that the FDA has pushed out that leucovorin drug for autistic people. Kids that have been nonverbal are starting to speak this week. It's a big deal. So a couple videos coming out. So before we jump into private, I want to play this video about Dick Durbin looking for a soundbite, talking to the former, he's the police union representative, right? He's talking to him about political violence against cops and really trying to get a highlight about this guy condemning January 6th violence.
What was your reaction when President Donald Trump gave a full and unconditional pardon to 1,500 individuals who had been prosecuted for violence against police officers?
Well, it's frustrating to see that, but what I point to is since that day, since January 7th, 2021 through today, we've had 1,537 officers injured where someone has assaulted a police officer, and 95% of those cases have been no papered by the U.S. Attorney's Office. So, yes, it's frustrating to have officers who are assaulted, but the vast majority of those people that assaulted officers that day were arrested and charged, and many of them convicted.
I'm asking about the full and unconditional pardon by the president. Your reaction to that?
My reaction is that it's more frustrating to have suspects who assault police officers who are arrested by cops and have that case no papered by a U.S. Attorney's Office than it is to have people who are convicted of crimes and spend years in jail and later be pardoned.
I guess I don't follow you. You're saying that since there were assaults aside from January 6th.
I guess I don't follow you. So what you're saying is that even if they're tried, convicted, the process is the punishment, they do spend some time in jail and then they get pardoned. It's really not that offensive because, like the officers in my case, no harm, no foul, man. Water under the bridge, right? You take your licks, we took our licks, we're good. Okay. He's less offended by that than the 95% of cases and the thousands of assaults. Remember, there's only like 270 or 170 officers on January 6th that even claimed to have had contact with protesters. So that their injury was very liberally construed, but nonetheless, he's saying there's 1,000 cases since then. 95% of them have gone unprosecuted. And Dick Durbin's like, well, I'm confused. I don't understand. So you're saying you're not upset about the pardons? Not nearly as much as I'm the ones who never got any kind of punishment whatsoever.
6 that were not prosecuted. You felt more strongly about that than the pardon of the president of 1,500 people who violently assaulted police
What I'm
officers.
saying, Senator, is
Did you hear the words that just came out of your mouth, Dick Durbin?
more than 1,500 officers have been assaulted by people since that day, and nothing has happened to those suspects.
Would you put them in at least the same level of outrage, assaults on your officers, whether in the Capitol?
So he wants assaults that went punished. People like myself spent 14 months in jail, and he wants to put it in the same category of outrage that we got our sentences commuted and or pardoned as people who don't even get tried?
Well, January 6th or afterwards.
I don't think anybody should ever be assaulting officers, and if they do, they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
And should they be full and unconditionally pardoned?
My frustration, Senator, is that no one seems to care about police officers who were assaulted after that day or before that day. It seems like people only care about police officers who were assaulted on that day in the calendar. Police officers are assaulted all the time, and no one seems to care about it, and that's our frustration.
Well, I'm certainly not in that category, and I don't think most people are, but let me tell you something else. I spent a better part of my life in this building, in the U.S. Capitol building, and I think you feel as I do. It is a cathedral to democracy and should be respected. And the people that broke down the windows, came in and beat up on your police officers are despicable. And to give them a full and unconditional pardon to me and call them peaceful protesters is not conducive to saying they are sympathetic to the police and their mission.
Well, Dick Durbin got his talking points in because he wanted to make the comparison that all this violence against cops, it was started by J6ers, and aren't you outraged? And the guy's like, not as much as by the ones before or after that weren't prosecuted. It's like, it only matters if it was on January 7th. It's like, you don't actually care about cops. You only care about your cathedral to democracy. That's basically what Dick Durbin just said. Okay, guys, it is time to jump over to private. So those of you that drop off, we'll see you tomorrow. For those of you that stick around, we'll see you in just a few seconds. It's always such a relief when we get into private.